Morehead State head coach Jonathan Mattox, first year as the head coach, although obviously not new to the program, been with it for 9 seasons off and on. Coach, let's just talk about first year, Morehead State head coach. How's that feel, and what are you looking forward to this year?
Yeah, no, it feels good. I'm certainly excited to be back. We've got a great group of young men, 6 returners that have really made my transition easy, smooth, whatever word you want to use there. Obviously, my familiarity with the university, with the campus, with the administration, with the league has been helpful. So I'm certainly excited, and we're looking forward to getting this thing started off November 4th at Louisville.
Thanks, Coach. We'll go to some questions. Adam, feel free to ask whatever you got.
All right. One of my two questions, since I'm allowed to, is for you, you've spent a long time as assistant coach, and I know everything's kind of been building up to you becoming a head coach, knowing that you're now a little over 2 weeks away from coaching your first game and being the main guy. How does that feel for you, and has that sunk in at all?
Yeah, and I'll give you more than two, Adam. I was messing with you, but it's a good feeling. It's also a feeling of, hey, come November 4th, come game one, my job is to make sure we're prepared. We're as prepared as possible. So there's obviously some things from now till that point that I want to get in. There's some things from now until that point that we need to get better at. So obviously it is a good feeling, but there's also a sense of urgency and what we have to do every day between now and then to get in the things we need to get in and get better at the things we need to get better at in order to be prepared November 4th.
Throughout your career, what are some of the biggest things that you've learned from, some of the coaches that you've coached under, whether that's, Preston Spradlin or Steve Prohm the last 2 years? What are the biggest takeaways you take from them as you carry into Morehead State getting ready to coach your first season?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I took from each of them was how to run a program, right? Coaching is so much more than calling a play. Coaching is so much more than what defense are we in or what defensive adjustments are we going to make. Probably the biggest thing I took from those two was how to run a program, how to be organized, how to be efficient, how to meet with staff, how to delegate staff, how to meet with players, and how to meet with your team, whether you're meeting with players one-on-one, whether you're meeting with your team collectively. But those two guys, they were sharp, they were thorough, they were efficient. So I've taken a lot of things from each one of them in terms of just how to run and manage a overall program. I think coaching, not that it's easy, but coaching is the easier part of it. Even as an assistant, you're going to have on-floor responsibilities, whether that's offense, defense. As an assistant, you're going to be heavily involved in workouts. You're going to be heavily involved in scouting reports, right? But in terms of running an overall program, of running a staff, coaching a staff and coaching a team, those two guys are very high level in how they do it. And I've taken a lot of things I've learned over the last few years with each one of them.
Throughout the first couple of weeks of your preseason practice, what have you seen from your guys and the progress that you've made as you try to kind of, to bond guys that are returning plus a lot of new guys into the program?
Yeah, I think we're really bought in on the defensive end right now, Adam. I've seen really relentless effort there. I've seen total buy-in there. And that's where it starts for us is on the defensive end and on the glass. We've got to get better on the glass. On the offensive end, guys are still trying to figure each other out, as I'm sure most programs are. Obviously, with the portal, each program nowadays has a lot of new players, and they sort of got to figure each other out, gauge each other, who likes the ball in what spot. So we're trying to figure some stuff out there offensively. But we're really bought in from a competitive standpoint, from an effort standpoint, from an energy standpoint, and that's where I wanted to start. And then we'll figure things out offensively as we go. The biggest thing there right now is we're turning the ball over a little too much, so we got to be more ball secure.
And my last question for you is for you. Have you had to change the way you approach coaching now that you're a head coach? Because, as assistant coach, you kind of can be that guy that takes guys off to the side and talks to maybe a different way than a head coach does. Have you had to change a little bit of that because you're now in this new role?
Yeah, and the great thing about Steve Prohm and Preston Spradlin was they gave me a lot of coaching responsibility, but they also gave me a lot of accountability responsibility. So there were times here where in practice we did something wrong or we did something like we weren't supposed to do it. And there were moments here that Coach Spradlin would give me the floor. Same thing at Murray. There were moments Coach Prone would give me the floor that really prepared me, because as a head coach, you have to be demanding. As a head coach, you have to hold guys accountable. So I think for me coming into this role, it was very natural for me because there have been times in the past 3 or 4 years as an assistant coach where I've gotten the floor, whether that's in practice or in the film room, and I've really gotten to hold guys accountable, right? And you know, you need practice in everything. That was great practice for me for the seat I'm sitting in now.
Jonathan, I appreciate it as always. Look forward to hearing from you Saturday.
Thanks, Adam.
2013, Coach. Well, you started as a graduate manager, right? Did you think at any point, but 10 years later, you're going to be the head coach of Morehead State?
I always had a vision of becoming a head coach, Kyle. In 2013, I was just trying to put my head down and learn as much as I can and be the best graduate manager / graduate assistant I could be, in hopes of becoming an assistant coach one day. And then once you become an assistant, same thing. Learn as much as you can, be the best assistant you can be, in hopes of becoming a head coach one day. I always wanted to be a head coach. Did I know I would be at Morehead for 9 years in different roles? No. Did I know I'd be sitting before you as a head coach at Morehead State, 11 years later after I started as a GA? No. But I always had that vision of becoming a head coach. And thankfully, I'm at a really good place with really good people in a place that I'm familiar with.
Now, I can ask you this in a year, and the answer may be different. So far, what's the best part about being the head coach?
You know, I think talking to different head coaches this summer and throughout the fall, obviously it's the freedom. You get to make your own calls. You get to make your own schedule. You get to make, the choices and decisions. So certainly there's a lot of freedom there, but with that freedom comes responsibility. And I'm not naive enough to know any different. So it's certainly a blessing. There's a lot of freedom in being a head coach and being your own boss, but there's also a lot of responsibility, and we have to live up to that end as well.
What do you like? I know Adam asked a little bit of this, but like, what do you think your team's strengths are right now? And will that be the team's strengths come February or March?
Yeah, I think our strength right now is our half-court defense. I think we spent a lot of time in that area, getting guys in the proper position off the ball, getting guys to compete on the ball and win their matchup there. We spent a lot of time there. We've got to get more physical on the glass. You know, we're doing a good job of forcing tough shots. When that shot goes up, you know, the most physical team is going to get the rebound. We got to have more physicality on the glass. And then offensively, I touched on it earlier, we got to do a better job of being ball secure. We're throwing the ball all over the place a little bit too much for my liking right now. We've got to slow down in some instances, make simpler plays so we can get a good shot. But I hope we can keep our defensive effort and intensity from now throughout March. I hope we can clean up some rebounding stuff and clean up our ball security.
How did you go about putting this roster together? And you got people like Deontay we'll hear from later, and mixing them in with new guys.
Yeah, I think the returners were really beneficial for me coming in as a first-year head coach. To have 6 returners was huge. Not only that, but to have 6 returners that had just won 26 games, that had just won a regular season championship, and had just won a conference tournament championship was even better. Those guys know how to work. They know how to listen. They know how to win. They know what it takes to be a successful team, starting with Deontay Miles, and then some of the returning guards who did not play as much, who will most likely see expanded roles this year: Trent Scott, George Marshall, Jerome Morton. And then there were 2 young men that redshirted last year, Jalen Wyndham and Jaden Webb. That's where it started with. We wanted to build a roster around those guys. Those were the nucleus. Brought in Kenny White, who was with me at Murray. Really good player, 6'7", long, can score, can block shots. This is his last year. This is his last chance. We had a heart-to-heart conversation about making the most of this opportunity. Stephen Clay is another Missouri Valley transfer. I was familiar with because Stephen was close with some of the players on my teams. At Murray, 6'4", 7-foot wingspan, really good shooter and good defender. And then he added in Jalen Brazil because we needed some depth at the guard spot, and Jalen was at USC Upstate. And then we brought in some guys that could make shots, and Tyler Brelsford from Bryant, and Cade Brugseger, who is an NAIA transfer. And then in the front court, Corey Carvey is a junior college transfer that had signed with the previous staff early, and Anwar Malouk we added late, who's another junior college transfer that gives us length and athleticism inside.
I know you weren't on the staff last year, but they had somebody like Riley Minnick. So they bring in for 1 year, and I know that doesn't happen every year. How do you find players that fit your system, and then maybe those gems that everybody knows about that are going to be difference makers right away?
Yeah, I think it's evaluation. It's all in your evaluation, and there are quote unquote Power 5 transfers who may not have played as much as their Power 5, but then you have guys who are Division II, NAI. We had a couple Division II transfers at Murray State that were really good players, in Jamari Smith and then Quincy Anderson. So there's a lot of guys out there like that, and you've got to evaluate them. Hey, is this somebody that fits our system? Is this somebody that fits our program core values, right? But there's a lot. It's kind of like the movie Moneyball, Oakland A's. Who's undervalued? Why are they undervalued? Riley Minnick is undervalued because, yeah, he had good numbers, but he did it at the NAIA level. So now people are questioning, can you do it at the Division I level? So you really got to take some time, get with your staff, do some hard digging, hard research on, hey, this is an undervalued guy. This is why he's undervalued, but this is why he fits in well at Morehead State, and we could use a guy like that. So it's a little bit of all the above there.
You referenced you're going to play Louisville on November 4th. Let's talk about your schedule a little bit. You got Cincinnati and some good teams in that non-conference.
We do, and the non-conference is to prepare you for conference play. So we're going to go into a couple hostile environments early and see how we respond. And this is competitive athletics, right? You're going to get hit in the mouth, right? And we need to know, hey, how are we going to respond if and when we get hit in the mouth? So we're opening up at Louisville, which will be a raucous environment. Pat Kelsey has done a really good job reinvigorating that fan base. We go to Cincinnati a few days later. So same thing, Wes Miller, really good coach. Cincinnati's anticipated to have a really good team and a really good program. And then we get into some good like level games at Chattanooga, at home versus Austin Peay. We're in a tournament up at Cleveland State, play Cleveland State and NJIT. And then we're at both Marshall and Ohio University. All those will be good tests geared to prepare us for conference play.
So then when we get to the conference play, which this year we got 20 games, some before Christmas, what do you envision? How have you seen the league maybe change in your time before when you were in Morehead, and what you anticipate to be this year?
A highly competitive league, and I watched it as much as I could the past couple of years. But Arkansas Little Rock is a really good program. Like KK Robinson, we played him last year, so I got a chance to see him firsthand, and then got to watch him a lot on TV. He's a really good player. He's a dynamic player that can do a lot of things. But you know, they got a really good team and a good program. Western Illinois, I don't know much about, but watching them last year, they impressed me. So the league has changed a little bit from losing some schools to adding some schools, but the competitiveness has not changed. Watching you know, week in and week out, the regular season was highly competitive when you have Little Rock and Morehead and who was the third that tied for the league championship? UT Martin, yeah. Right? You know, and then watching the OVC tournament, like it is a highly competitive league. That will not change. There have been new faces added, new coaches, new teams, new players, all the above, but the competitiveness has not changed.
Talk about playing Johnson Arena, which has been a real home court advantage for this program the last couple of years.
Yeah, you know, and it was like that my last couple of years. Obviously, you know, every program wants to protect home. We were fortunate enough to do that. We've got a really good fan base. Our players feel really comfortable here, you know, with the backing that we have. And, you know, when you have good players and good teams and And, hopefully I don't screw them up too much and you have a good backing, now you can generate a lot of excitement at home. And if you can go out and really protect home and protect it at a high level, it certainly gives you an edge in those standings as we hit February and March.
Let's end on this question then. What is one or two things that your team needs to do to be successful between now and March so you can win an OVC champion?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is consistency. We got to be consistent in our day-to-day approach. We got to be consistent in how we practice. We got to be consistent in how we handle our business off the court, whether that's academically or personally. Consistency is what matters. You see it in sports right now. Alabama beats Georgia and then loses to Vandy. Inconsistent, right? But there was probably something that, inconsistent in their approach or inconsistent in their practice that led to an inconsistent performance on the road. Can we find consistency in everything we do? I think that's the biggest thing between the teams that are championship caliber in March and the teams that are just average in March.
Well, I did one more follow-up about that. Before we go to Deontay, a little bit, since he's with us, a little bit more about him. Just give us some more specifics before we transition.
Yeah, and Deontay's a young man I've known about for a long time. Touched base with him in high school here or there, really before he became a Power 5 player. Followed him a little bit at Xavier. We actually played Xavier. Maybe was that your last year there when you were there, or second to last year? But anyways, he's a guy who's really, really coachable, who does everything you ask him to do, how you ask him to do it. He runs the floor hard in transition. We've really worked on his back to the basket game, and he's bought into that, and he's improved offensively. And then obviously we need him to defend and protect the rim and rebound at a high level. But great kid, great young man. I was fortunate enough to sit down with him and his father shortly after I got the job, and they assured me that they were all in, which meant, a lot to me because he is the lone returning starter from last year's team. So we needed him. I didn't want him back. I did want him back, but not only that, I needed him back. It was both a want and a need. So I'm fortunate for him every day. He's a leader on this team, and he'll have a great season for us.
Well, Coach, thanks for your time. Best of luck to you in your program this year.
Kyle, Adam, I appreciate it.